Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to lesson 2 of Alif to Ya. Today we'll be doing a quick recap of lesson 1. So in every lesson I like to do a recap, so those that did attend yesterday, they have a good, a revision of it. Those that weren't able to attend, then they get a bit of a glimpse to know what page of the book we're on as well. We'll be starting with our first two makhraj or makharij, which are the Al-Jawf, the oral passage, and Al-Khayshoom, the nasal passage. Its rewards. Yesterday we mentioned 10 rewards per letter recited, and that the proficient reciter will be with the noble angels. As for the one that struggles, he will have 2 rewards, one for trying and one for reading it. Then the next virtue is to learn and teach. The famous hadith goes, خيركم, the best of you, من تعلم القرآن, are those that learn the Qur'an. And then وعلمه, then they teach it. So you learn the Qur'an first and foremost to benefit yourself. And those that have studied tajweed, one of the best ways to stay in touch of your tajweed and improve your own recitation is then to teach somebody what you've learned. So you can't just have your very first lesson and think, okay, you know what, I can teach tajweed. You have to go through a certain process, a certain amount of lessons with your teacher before you can start teaching it. But get to a level where if your teacher was to listen to you teach, they would be okay with you teaching. So learn the Quran, and how do you stay in touch with it? Teach it to others. And that way you're also attaining more rewards. In terms of the etiquettes, we mentioned how you should always try to be in the state of wudu, begin with the ta'awudh and the tasmiyah as well. And the next etiquette which we'll discuss today is recite with tartil. Now tartil is a balanced, slow recitation. So tartil is a clear recitation that is balanced. So what it means by clear is, of course, somebody can tell every single letter that you are reciting. When it comes to a balanced tone, what it refers to as a balanced tone is your 1 count stretches, your 2 count stretches, your 3, 4, 5 count stretches are consistent. You're consistent throughout, so it's balanced. Now, somebody that's reading Taraweeh, if you've heard the famous Taraweeh recitations that go from 0 to 60 and Allahu A'lam how fast, that is not tartil. Tartil is a relaxed recitation. Now, if I was to just give you an example of the second ayah of Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, yeah, the ayah. If you're to recite it fast, you're not going to really feel any impact on you. And you're just going to feel as if it's a checklist. But when you recite with tartil, it will start to sink in. So I'm going to give you an example of just that ayah, first with no tartil, really, really fast. And then a much more calmer, much more slower pace. So, Bismillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. It's gone so fast that I can't even think about the meaning. Now a much more slower pace. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. If you were to try that out yourself, you'd notice it's sinking in more, and you're able to try to understand every single word, what it means. So it has a much more bigger impact. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said, for someone to recite 1 surah, 1 chapter with tartil is better to recite than reciting the whole Quran rushed. Now, if you listen to somebody reading in a rushed tone, you're not going to really enjoy it. But someone that recites nice and slow and melodiously, you enjoy it much more. Now, in lesson 1, we started with the letters, and I took a screenshot of all the lessons that are for lesson 1. The very first page on the right-hand side is a page that I completely discourage anybody from teaching. Transliteration is something that people should get in the habit of not getting used to. You should have a habit of not using it. Okay. So, and not only that, some transliterations are extremely poor. So if you look at, for example, the 4th row, the second box from the right hand side, va. You'll notice it has, the transliteration has a Z. But anyone with the sane mind that studied tajweed will know that there is no Z sound for va. Va has no Z sound. The makhraj, as we'll discuss in a few lessons time, is completely different. Za and va are completely different. Your tongue is touching different parts of your mouth when you're pronouncing these two letters. So that one is va, va. No Z sound at all. No Z. It's not za or za. No Z sound at all. So I generally tell people, don't ever start with that page number 1. Start with exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3, all together in the same time. What I mean by that is, when you're teaching somebody the letters, if you were to read it once to them, they are no way going to memorize all the letters, and they are no way going to get all of those letters correctly. Break it down. So teach alif, ba, ta, tha, or teach alif and tell them to recognize it from exercise 2. Then ba, get the pronunciation correct, then tell them to identify it from exercise 2 and 3. Same with ta, tha, etc., etc. Take it in different stages. That way, you're ensuring the student recites the letter correctly. We don't want someone to say, closing their eyes, alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, etc., etc., when they can't even recognize it. They need to both pronounce it correctly and also recognize the correct letters. Al-Jawf and Al-Khayshoom. So, everybody has air passages. In your head, there is your mouth, you can breathe from, and you can also breathe through your nose. So you can breathe through your mouth or you can breathe through your nose. Now, these two makhraj, Al-Jawf and Al-Khayshoom, are generally not taught together. And when you start studying tajweed, when I started studying tajweed, it made me think, why is it not taught? Why is it taught separately? Why is it not taught together? Because when you're taught al-jawf are these stretches, e, u, and don't worry if you can't recognize the Arabic letters. Don't worry, just know that I'm focusing more on the stretching sound. E, u. When you do that, those sounds should not be coming through your nose at all. So if I was to pinch my nose to block any air coming out, those 3 should sound exactly the same. So I'll try that out, and you should also try this out as well. I'm going to pinch my nose and say e, u. E, u. My nose should not be blocked. Now, if I try to say this with diverting the air through my nose, I won't be able to say it. I'm going to try that out for all 3. Even with E, I can't do it. Even I can't do it. So it shouldn't be coming through there at all. Okay. Now, this is a common error where people have nasality issues. I've had this many times, and it takes a lot of practice and dua and a specific diet as well to get rid of the nasality issue. How common is it? So when somebody says Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, the last word Al-Alameen, when they're stretching that, sometimes you can go through the nose. So I'll give you an example with nasal and without nasal. Al-Alameen. That's with nasal. Al-Alameen. Without nasal. In versus in. Or let me add the ain to that. Ain versus in. You notice the difference there. Okay. So when you say these e, u, make sure no air is coming through your nose. Block your nose and try it out if it is there. Okay. Another way you can tell is when you're saying you can pinch it and let go, pinch it and let go, go like this. So if it is doing that, your voice will change. So I'm going to give you an example with the sound coming through my nose. You might hear a difference. Whereas when it comes fully through my mouth, when I pinch it, it should not make any difference. No difference at all. The same with E and U. Okay. So ensure that when you do these stretches, no sound comes through your nose. The nasal sounds are attribute it to something else, which we're not going to get into right now because it's not actually a letter, but it's actually like a, for example, noon. I might as well do this now. So if I was to say that stretch, not just where I'm pronouncing noon from. Noon is pronounced from the tongue, with the tongue. But when I'm doing the stretch with a noon or a meme, these are coming directly through the nose. So if I was to stretch it and block my nose, the sound will stop. I'll give you an example. And the sound completely stops. Same with meme. So it's important to know where the air is coming from. And when you become aware of this, you start to listen to some famous reciters. Of course, they don't, alhamdulillah, they don't have it. But some other ones, you notice they always sound like, sometimes they sound like they have a flu when they're reciting at times. So that's when they have a nasality issue. Okay. And what helped me is I actually searched on YouTube how to get rid of a nasal issue. And there's actually stuff, those that have a singing career, they try to get rid of nasal issues. So these musical instructors, they actually give you advice on how to avoid it. There are certain diets as well you can do. So for example, having if you're about to do, like, for example, you're about to do tarawih, or you're going to lead salah, or you're going to just read Quran to a teacher, avoid stuff that develops mucus. So for example, dairy. Actually avoid eating food just before reciting. Anything that builds mucus will actually make you sound more nasal. If you have a meal before you recite, you're not going to be able to recite with a long breath. So that is the airway. So now I'm going to display quite a few words, and this is where I'm going to ask people to volunteer to read these words. Okay, so there's quite a few. The ones on the right hand side are to do with alif. The ones, the second column are to do with the ya. Middle is to do with the waw. The ones on the left are adding a noon at the end. And that is usually when the nasality comes up. Because like I said, when you say that's stretching, then the sound comes through the nose. So what happens is people, instead of focusing on the ya, they focus on the noon. Okay, if you can read the column on the right hand side for me, please.
Anna.
The full thing. So put a sakin on the scene. So annas.
Nas.
Yeah, just make that stretch longer for me. Just let's exaggerate the stretch a bit.
Annas.
Even longer for me. Nas.
Annas. Yada.
Good.
Jaha.
Ja'a.
Ja'a.
Good. Okay, next column as well.
Allazi.
Good.
Jidiha.
Good. So just don't stretch the dal. Make sure you don't stretch the dal because there's no ya there. So diha.
Jidiha.
But you have to stretch the jim as well. So diha. Jidiha.
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 So at the moment you're stretching the dal a bit too much. So try this out. Say diha.
Diha.
Jidiha.
Jidiha.
Better.
Next one, yeah?
Yeah.
Yalla fiha.
Ila fihi.
Yalla. No, sorry.
Ila.
Ila fihim.
Good, good. And if you do the two in the middle as well for me.
Yulad.
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 Good. One below it.
A'udhu.
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 Good. And just the two on the top.
Din.
Dini.
Dini.
And now I want you to stretch it with a sakin at the end. Deen.
Din.
Good. I want you to continue that stretch and then pinch your nose and unpinch it. So for example, try that out.
Din.
So keep stretching it. Keep stretching it for me. And pinch your nose, unpinch it. Is your voice changing when you do that?
Yes.
So that means it's going for your nose a bit. Okay, try the one on after it.
Dinkum.
Yeah, but stretch that dinukum. I want you to exaggerate the stretch right now.
Okay. Dinakum.
Good. When you do that, and by the way, I'm saying exaggerate. This isn't how you would read Quran. It's to find out where the air is going through. So I want you to say dinukum, but while you're stretching it, I want you to unpinch your nose.
Dinakum.
Okay. I did hear a bit of nasality there. And next one below it.
Yadjulun.
Nasta'in.
Oh, sorry, I did the other line. Okay.
That's fine. No worries.
Nasta'in.
Good. And then just do the top one on the left-hand side, and then we'll give somebody else a go.
Ta'ulun.
Ta'budun.
Tahdu'un.
Ta'budun.
Tahbudun.
So not ha, it's ayn. Ta'.
Tahbudun.
So what you're doing is T-A-H. I need it to be a T-A,
Ta.
but strain your throat. Ta'. Yeah,
Tahbudun.
ta'budun.
Tahbudun.
Good. Now, just a heads up for everybody. This is more focused. This, like I said, with this course, is focused for all levels. So if you're somebody that's completely a beginner and you don't know what on earth is going on, don't worry. This is where we're going to be using all the different levels within the group that we have to improve everybody, and we'll be teaching you all of this stuff. But by the end of it, you'll be able to do this stuff, inshallah. That's the aim. So if you are lost, if anybody's lost, don't worry. We have the sat nav, inshallah. By the end of it, you'll be fine. Okay. Jazakallah khair. I'm just going to give to Shamsad Begum as well. Barakallahu feekum. So what I'd say is just practice the nasality. Avoid the nasal stuff. Practice it by holding your nose and say deen until it doesn't go into your nose. Yeah. So just practice that for me. Jazakallah khairah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So could you just read the first row for me, please? This row here.
Okay. الناس الذي يولد
Yeah.
ديني
Good. Now I want you to exaggerate the stretch like the previous sister did.
ديني
Good. And next one.
تعبدون
Good. And exaggerate the stretch again.
تعبدون
Good. And I want you to say do and pinch and unpinch your nose.
دون
Was your voice changing as you did that?
slightly.
Okay, so that means it's very slight. I know it's a very, very slight nasal. It wasn't as much, but very slight. So it's almost there. You just need to lower it a bit more, inshallah. Yeah? Assalamu alaikum. Okay, if you can also read the very top line for me.
الناس
Good.
الذي
So with that one, keep the consistency. So الذي.
الذي
Good.
يولد
Good.
ديني
Good.
تعبدون
So when you say doon, I want you to stretch it and go pinch, unpinch your nose.
دون
So doon, I want you to do that.
دون
So there you go. Can you hear that? Can you hear that change in the voice? That means it's coming through the nose. So you need to do just pinch it and say doon.
دون
Yeah. So we need it to fully come through the mouth. Okay. So practice that. Yeah. Jazakallah khairah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Very good volunteers. Barakallahu feekum for taking part. So what we've done today are these three things. We've discussed the etiquette, recite with tartil. Rewards, best of you, are those that learn the Quran and then teach it, and the oral and nasal passages. Question, do we get rid of the nasal issue by doing the trick that you showed? The question about the nasality. So this is something that I've struggled with for 2-3 years ago. Now, there are certain sounds that come through the nose. Okay? But there are many sounds that do not come through the nose. The way I did it is, first and foremost, you do dua. Honestly, you do dua. This is one of the tips that one of my dear friends got from his teacher. You do dua that Allah removes that nasality issue where you're not meant to be doing it. The second thing is that it takes a lot of practice. You need to become conscious and aware of when you're doing it. One of the best times you can become aware of when you do it is the pinching, unpinching. You could tell when the sound changes, then you're doing something that's going through your nose. And you just need to tweak, fiddle with your voice box, your air passages, and find what is right for you. Okay. So, for example, I used to focus on, maybe it was my tongue blocking, the back of my tongue is blocking the passage, hence why the air is coming through my nose. That's one thing there. It could be that it's partially blocking it. So some of it's coming through my mouth, some of it's coming from my nose. It could be different things. It could be I have too much phlegm in my nose. I have too much phlegm in my throat. It could be a whole bunch of things. The positioning of the strengthening of your muscles. So I used to do Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So now the front of my tongue has lifted up, causing a bit of a blockage as well, making me go through my nose. But when I say mean, no sound, a lot of strengthening in that. So constantly going to a teacher to have this issue, and it's a bit more difficult online. Face to face is best, but of course, COVID is a bit of an issue. But practicing it to somebody and also testing yourself. I've taught you how to test yourself if it's nasal now. So mean is too nasal. Mean, no nasality at all. So find what you can do. What I focus is as if I'm sitting on my tongue and pushing it down. That helped me a lot to focus the air passage through the mouth. So there's different things that you just can fine tune, inshallah.